Well, hello, students. I want to give you an introduction to the story, The Ghost of Bobby Dunbar, that you're going to be listening to, examining, working with a partner on, considering, and coming to some kind of conclusion. So, this is in Module 3. Once you log into Blackboard, of course, you go to course content, including units and modules. And we'll work our way down to Module 3. And as always, I reiterate the learning outcomes that we specifically will be addressing in this particular module. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I do have some readings on storytelling and stories. They're recommended, not required. We go over oral history, and you have your team assignment, partner assignment. But I want to access the Bobby Dunbar folder and give you a little tour. First, you're going to see the Bobby Dunbar cast of characters. So when you select that, it's going to download a Microsoft Word document right here. And so I kind of have a little legend or directions to indicate to you why I've used different fonts, different colors. Times New Roman in blue. Those are people who were alive when the original incident happened. Arial black, these are the descendants of the people who were involved. So these are people who were alive at least in 1999 to the present. Although we know a couple of people have passed since the first airing of this American Life episode. But I wanted to give you kind of a list of the family members because as you're listening to the story, it's going to be told in present day with flashbacks to what happened to the people who were involved then, and I thought this would help you keep track. I do feel a little guilty for saying it's a cast of characters because I want you to understand this is a true story. These were real and are real people involved in this. And so I don't mean to make light or suggest that it's fiction in any way. It is a true story, as are the stories on This American Life. But because there are so many people involved and so many moving parts, so to speak, I did want to give you some kind of list of the people involved. So I think that will be helpful to you. And then I just have some very crude looking family trees so you can see how they're connected to one another. So in the Dunbar family, we have the father, who was named Percy, probably Percival, Leslie, the mother, and they had two children, a boy named Alonzo, a boy named Bobby. Now, Alonzo goes on to have at least one child that we know of. David is mentioned in this episode. Bobby and his wife go on to have three children, Bob, Gerald, and Mary. Now, we're going to hear from Bob, who's part of this reminiscence given to his daughter, Margaret. But just to show you the tree here, so Bob and his wife have Margaret, Robbie, and Swin. And early on in the episode, you're going to understand why I crossed out Robbie. Now, as far as the Anderson family goes, we have Julia Anderson. She was married prior to the events that you're going to hear about and divorced. But as we hear the story, my best count is 10 children. That over her lifetime she had at least 10 children. She had one baby who died. She had one child, a daughter that she gave up for adoption, and I think she's later named Bernice by her adoptive parents. Then she had Bruce, who factors into this story. Well, later on, as we're hearing her descendants talk about this, we find out that she goes on to have at least 7 other children with the man she ends up married to, Hollis Rawls. And so I don't know what all of their names are, but we do know about Jewel and Hollis. Jewel is a daughter, Hollis is a son, probably named after his father. And then we're also going to hear from Jewel's daughter, so this would be a granddaughter named Linda, Linda Tarver. Now, as far as the Walters family goes, we know that the father was J.P., and J.P. had 3 sons. William Cantwell Walters, who's also referred to as Cant, Uncle Cant, by his great nieces. Rad, who I believe is the grandfather of Jean and Barbara, from whom we'll hear in this episode. Don't know what their dad's name was, but I think they kind of lived with their grandfather. And then there is the infamous Uncle Bunt, and you're going to hear a little bit about why he was infamous. But William Cantwell Walters is, central to the story when we think about what happened to the 3 families. Now, you have some other materials you can explore, but basically, you're going to start out by listening to the story, and I want you to kind of scan ahead, review what you're going to have to do, because as you listen, you will need to take notes. Now, you might be wondering, okay, on what? What should I focus on? Well, you need to focus on a particular family's point of view. There are 3 families involved, the Dunbars, the Andersons, and the Walters family. And so I have randomly assigned you to a family group, and I set that up in Blackboard, but I just kind of listed them here quickly so you can see if you are a Dunbar, an Anderson, or a Walters family member. And so as you're listening to the story, all of us, all of you, will be listening to the same story, but depending on what group you're in or what family you're in, you're going to listen to the story from that family's point of view and take notes from that family's point of view. And then you kind of further divide your note-taking into 2 categories. What did the original family members believe happened, and why? Why did they believe that? Then fast forward about 100 years, what did their descendants believe, and why? So you're going to see that these 3 families have varying views on what happened and varying beliefs. And as we've been discussing, beliefs are a powerful thing. Once we come to believe something, whether it's something that our family told us or a friend told us or we learned early on as a child, it's often very hard to give up that original belief. And that's what we call confirmation bias. And we're going to be looking at confirmation bias even after we finish with these activities related to Bobby Dunbar. But all of these families, have a vested interest in their family story. It's human nature that we all have confirmation bias. So if you're a Dunbar family member, you want to take notes from the Dunbar family perspective. What did the original folks who were involved believe? Why? What information do we hear in this American Life podcast that aligns with that? What do the Anderson family members believe? Again, the original ones who were involved, as well as the descendants. And then what did the Walters family believe? And then their descendants. Then after you take those notes, you will go to your family's discussion board. And I'm going to ask you to post your notes there. And then read over the other family members' posts. So you're going to have to come back to this forum, this discussion board forum, a few times so that as more people post, you can come back and read and respond. Imagine that you're having a family discussion. You would ask each other questions, make comments. So do that in writing. Okay, now, just a quick synopsis before you start listening to the story. I'll give you a bit of an introduction. Picture it. It's the early 1900s, about 1912 in the South. 2 little boys go missing. two little boys who happened to be about 4 years old, each one of them. They don't have any connection at this time. It's just that two little boys go missing around the same time in the South, two different states. 8 months later, a little boy is found in the company of one William C. Walters. And depending on whose story you believe, Mr. Walters was just a kindly old gentleman, a tinkerer, someone who fixed things, tinkered on things, and rode around the country on a horse-drawn wagon, and he would knock on the doors of various folks and ask, hey, do you have any odd jobs I can do? I can tune your piano. And he was just this kindly old tinkerer who was helping out a poor mother down on her luck who could barely make ends meet. And he offered to help her out and take her little boy Bruce along with him for a little while. That's one story. But if you believe another family's story and their supporters, William Walters was nothing but a kidnapper. He took their son, Bobby Dunbar. Now, he was found and arrested in Louisiana. And kidnapping at that time was a capital offense. So he faced the death penalty. Listen to this story to determine what happened and what these three families believed, what is uncovered 100 years later, and then how they approach this new information. Enjoy.